I'd like to call this Central School Board meeting on February 24th, 2025 to order with all board members present except for board member Krails. Please stand and join me for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to A4, approval of the agenda. Is there any changes from board members? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Aishin, second by Probus. Any other conversations? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Agenda is approved. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Schockner, is there anything you would like to highlight here?
Yeah, there's actually two items that I'd like to highlight specifically. First, I did receive a resignation letter this last week from Sue Forster, our community director, so we are going to be looking, well, I don't know what we're going to do with that position here, but she did resign effective June 30th, so I wish my best to Sue. She's doing next. Secondly, and most importantly, at the beginning of February, Jody Gerson came in and had she met with me, and she notified the district that she was retiring. And Jody has been with Central Schools for 30 years. And she's just a phenomenal teacher and teammate. And I just, for reasons I'm not going to say publicly, I just have a very fondness for Jody. She's been pulling a plow the last 5 years for sure. She's had some personal things going on that if you know Jody, you know, and she has just been a trooper and always someone willing to learn. Just last year, she went with the math team to a building thinking classrooms training, and I mean, she redid her whole thing, and I just it's gonna be a whole that will surely fill after. So congratulations to Jody Gerson.
The student life she's impacted, and thank you to her.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second? Motion made by Aishin, second by Erickson. Okay, so I didn't know where that came from. All right. Any other comments, board members? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to acceptance of gifts. We have $2,000 from the Central. These are all from the Central Booster Club. $2,000 for volleyball equipment, $3,400 for the Hall of Fame wall, and some $750 for 3 teacher classroom grants. Thank you for the boosters for those very generous gifts.
Move to approve gifts.
Motion made by Kobach, second by Kelly. Any other conversations? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Gifts are approved. We'll move into the public forum. You have me slips view. Okay, we'll then move on to C, informational items. We'll start with the student council report. If you wouldn't mind just standing up, sharing your name and your grade and.
I'm Sam and I'm in 11th.
I'm April and I'm in 11th.
So basically what we've done this month, since it was Valentine's Day, we decorated a heart and we took the Raider pride slips from elementary and did like the copy act things for high school and middle school. We did help with the Dairy Expo for FFA, help setting that up.
We also did this like duck thing, and we had like ducks, like candy, and like little like squishy things that we did like a fundraiser type thing for. And we also sold flowers.
And we also have a snow week going on, DJ Day,
Yes, we did.
Artist Duo Day, and I think Wednesday is dress with your first letter of your name day. I don't remember Thursday, and I think Friday's for your dress.
Thank you. Questions from board members? All right, thank you, Sam and April. We say this every time, you're more than welcome to stay, but you would be the first ones that would stay through a meeting, but you are more than welcome to stay if you would like. Otherwise, go enjoy your basketball. Thank you for being here. All right, we'll move on. Students representative report. Caitlin could not be here today, but she did send something.
She's a basketball player, so she is doing that. So I'm just gonna read the email that she sent me. She said, I was gonna give a little recap on some of the activities going on in school. Softball and baseball and track are just about to start. Girls basketball is already in the playoffs and the boys start soon. Girls playoff game is this evening. Knowledge Bowl is coming to an end with one regular meet left. Esports is doing very well, and so is speech. I've been hearing some very positive things and excitement from all these activities. Thank you again, and sorry I couldn't make it. So.
Thank you, Caitlin.
In her absence.
Good luck tonight.
Yes, good luck tonight.
All right. Well, then we'll just roll right into superintendent reports.
Okay, so a couple of things that so in the superintendent's report, I added all of the House and Senate bills that are applicable right now. So for everyone, we are in a legislative session right now, and this is the most important year in terms of schools, because typically this is when budgets are done, and it's just typically in the first year of a biennium I spend a little bit more time down there just advocating for our district and whatnot. But this is not something that you need to go through and read every single House bill or Senate bill, but this is just what's on the mind of some of the folks. So some things that I've been down to the Capitol twice, and I would say that there are two things that you could keep your finger on the pulse of. Is first, I think cell phones and the cell phone and banning cell phones is going to possibly be a real thing. I think it has bipartisan support, and so if you recall last session, districts were required to make a cell phone policy. We have made ours, and because I think it's very, there's a lot of nuance between each district. I think the legislature is looking to do something, so I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened. I think, and I'm gonna go on a fine line here. I'm gonna try to stay on the straight and narrow, but I mean, if you remember the last time 2 years ago when I was talking to you and talking to the board, we had record years for funding, but also for mandates that came along with that funding. And $18 billion was spent at the state legislature. They were projecting, the last I heard, a $5 billion shortfall. And as you'll see in some of these bills, there are things that directly impact Central Public Schools. The first of which is some compensatory education funding. So I'm going to talk about that just briefly. So for everyone that's sitting in the room, compensatory education funding is basically funding that the state gives us to provide interventionists for students that may not get it the first scoop of instruction. So they may need some extra helpings of math or science or reading or language arts before they understand it, which is fine because not all of us will learn and grow at the same rate. Well, how that funding is divvied out is typically by your free or reduced lunch count. In the last legislative session, they changed the law that said basically, if you fill out the free or reduced lunch form at school, we're not going to use that to count whether you're on free or reduced lunch or not. We're going to only count it if you are, the term is directly certified, meaning you register with the county and then you qualify for all the different services that the county may provide. I'm proud to say Central Schools, we kind of doubled down on that because we knew that the law was changing. And so nearly every single one of our applicants is directly certified. And because of which we were on track to get about $120,000 more from year over year, which would be great. The bad side of that is there are 89 districts in the state that are in that bucket. Well, there's like 230 districts that aren't in that bucket. And I'm not going to name some of the districts, but sorry, I need to tell the camera that we're still here. Yes, we are still here. Stay in the call. some of these districts are losing, in some cases, millions of dollars because they only took free reduced lunch forms. Well, they have banded together and they're petitioning the governor and some legislatures. And so what you may see in some of these things is a hold harmless is what they're calling it. Well, basically what that means is they're going to hold those 230 districts harmless, meaning they can get the same amount. And how they're going to do that is to use last year's rules. So they're going to count everybody that used the paper form. In essence, like take away $120,000 from us. And it's just very frustrating. And so we're down advocating for if you're going to hold harmless, that means hold us harmless too.
Yeah.
You know? So those are kind of the two of the bigger things that are happening down there in terms of, I mean, there's other stuff as well, but in terms of the things education wise, it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's a $5 billion hole that needs to get plugged, and it'll just be interesting how they do that. So, any questions about that? So again, the things in the superintendent's report, you don't need to go and look at these, but just for your at-home reading, you can take a peek at it if you'd like. Yeah.
On the compensatory funding, the total compensatory funding statewide stays the same, like it's the same size, the pie's the same size, it's just getting sliced more.
That's a great way to, yes, okay, yep. Any other questions?
A lot of stuff in there.
There is.
Is it, are they do?
So if you look at the bottom, some of them say HF and some of them say SF, and one's a Senate bill, one's a House bill. Sometimes they, or did I put them in? Oh, okay, I may have hit.
Yeah.
I didn't intentionally. Second thing, this just relates to all of you. I know, we talked last board meeting about board pay, so you're not gonna get a claim form tonight. So Amy has sent you all the spreadsheet where we're gonna keep track of everything. So tonight we'll have two meetings, one for the interviews, one for the regular meeting. But if there are any questions from the board as far as pay and what you need to do, if you don't do it monthly, Amy's gonna give you a month notice before she cuts checks in June, I think is when you'll get one payment in June, one payment in December, so 6 months. Fair enough. Okay. Last thing, Mr. Larson, if you can click on the attachment there, I want to go through the board finance report. We are doing the amended budget later on in the meeting here. But if you could scroll down, keep going. So go back to the enrollment there. There you go. So we're looking again, the biggest indicator of health financially for our district is enrollment. And so we did start with 944 students. We are down to 931. We did have some kids go online, things like that. We are going to see a little bit of uptick, which is fairly typical around sometimes leases end in January, some of the leases. So we are going to see a little bit of an uptick next month. But if you notice, I moved the yellow line up. No, you're good. I moved the yellow line up. So our amended budget, which again, you're going to see later tonight, is at 930 students. So I adjusted this graph to indicate where the amended budget was at. Rich, if you can go to the next slide. This is our graphs showing our levy promises to voters in 2019. So we go through this every single board meeting. So things are on track. You are going to see some changes on curriculum, on the curriculum piece. We did get some one-time money this year. I think it was $34,000 for the READ Act. So we've actually at this point in time, we've overspent our curriculum budget. But once you approve the amended budget, that will get cleaned up and it'll be a little bit different next month. Is there any questions around the finance report?
We're at 925.
Our original budget was 915. Yep, 915, which I think we ended last year at 911. Good question. Anything else?
Any other question?
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to board reports. Does anybody have anything?
I can talk about 288. So we had, a board retreat this past weekend where we did, a strategic planning. Kind of just going through the vision and mission and just kind of, getting through, since we've had a lot of change over in the leadership there, just kind of where do we want the board or the district to go? In kind of talking with some of the board members who have been there for a while, like nothing like this has been done in at least 10 years at 288. So it was really good. Had some great discussion. There was a lot of pre-work that went into it as far as having focus groups, and they really did a great job of bringing in teachers and staff and parents and just kind of getting like a very well-rounded feedback from kind of what we have been doing and where we want to go. It was some really good discussion, a lot about, just being very cognizant about the districts that are part of 288 and that everything that we do there directly affects those districts. And so, we might all decide that this would be really great if we could do this for, our special ed programs and stuff, but we have to be cognizant that we're affecting other people too. It's very different than like this district. So there's gonna probably be some changes happening there, but I think really for the good. And we'll kind of see where that comes out. I don't know, the superintendents were kind of involved with some of it as well, so.
And do you want me to add anything?
Yeah,
No,
please, go for it.
So I think Dr. Horton, the new superintendent there, is looking at how he can be more efficient. And I don't want to get the cart before the horse or anything, but it's just, so there's some ratios with special education students that you need to stay into, especially in setting 4, which is very low instance special education programs. Like for example, I know the autism program has to be, or can only be 6-1. So some of the facilities,
6-1,
pardon me?
6-1-2.
You'd say,
6 students, 1 teacher.
six students, 1 teacher, 2 parents. And he's getting some foreign, foreign teaching.
Yeah, so bringing
candidates from-
teachers in on visas
Yeah.
that they're good for 3 years, and then they have the ability to up for another 3 after that. But just because you have to basically hold 2 different licenses to be a special ed teacher, and it is very hard to find that. We've even looked out of state and still are not able to fill the positions. And the goal is, well, there was 2 kind of goals, I guess.
Yeah.
One was like no wait list. And then kind of the other side of that was, how do we get it to be like a wait list in a positive way?
Yeah.
Like, I want to go to that
Yeah.
school, to
Yeah.
get help or to utilize them for a subject or something like that. So,
No.
but yeah, he's bringing in,
Yes, he did. Well, I mean, last weekend, I think he went and picked up a group. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's 17 coming in this year, and we had 16 last year. Or
there's a big group coming
Yeah.
this week.
well, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him, but
There's just some,
but it's, and like the attrition rate there, I mean, last year, again, there were 16, 15 are staying on for this year.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. And in all, what he's trying to do is, instead of having 1 teacher, 2 pairs, 6 kids, maybe running like a co-teaching model where there's 2 teachers, 1 pair, 12 kids, but he doesn't even have the rooms to be able to do that. And so it's just, I think, it'll be interesting. I think there's some changes for the good.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Dr. Horton will be coming to a board meeting. I don't know which one, but he is gonna be coming, introducing himself to this board and talking about some of the special programs they offer, so.
Any questions for Emily? Anything else from board members?
We had community and advisory seminar.
Okay. We'll move on to discussion items. Is there some?
Discussion items, D1, first reading of policies 506, 515, 519, and 533.
You bet. So just to, I know Spencer and Troy are new, but I just want to remind everyone. So typically when we look at policies, we do a first reading And so after this board meeting, I was kind of noticed to the public, hey, we're looking at these policies after this board meeting. Our policy committee, which is Spencer, Josh, and Shelby, I'll initiate the the MSB red line, so we'll be able to talk about those. And then next month, or the month after, just depending on how long the work takes, the second reading and the revisions will come back as a recommendation from that committee.
Any questions from board members on that? All right, we'll move into the next one.
D2, winter weather boots.
Okay, can you pull up, can you make that bigger? Is it, can you even make it even bigger? I don't know.
Make
Scroll
it
up
a
a
giant
little bit.
Scroll up.
windshield chart.
No,
There, no, there you go, up a little bit.
more. Look, no,
Oh, down?
down.
I guess it's up to.
Person, tell them.
There you go.
There you go.
You're
I'll say
doing
the
great. See the plus
76.
minus?
There you go. There you go. Okay, so, can I call you? Okay, so, last Wednesday, or last Wednesday. We're in the next week. Yeah, last Wednesday, I get a call, from Spencer, and he's like, hey, can you talk me through school cancellations and, how to respond to people that question decisions or question the decision-making process? So I just want to take everyone through, just a little bit, like what goes into making a decision of when we call school, when we don't call school, when it's a late start. So, I think the number one thing is timing is everything. If large amounts of snow, if we're getting like 2 inches an hour, is happening between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m., like there's the possibility that school could be delayed or canceled because just the amount of snow that's coming down. Our buses are very safe, but typically, like I have Ross Schneider on cell phone. It's like he does the county roads. It's like we have 150 square miles in our school district, and 50% of our students live in country, and I have to safely transport them as well. And so timing is one factor when looking at canceling school. The area superintendents were all on one big text chat, and it usually starts the night before. Hey, what are you guys thinking? And I think something that also goes into it, we get weather advisories from the North Oceanic something NOAA, and whatever NOAA stands for. And sometimes we'll be in an advisory, and sometimes we'll be in a watch. Sometimes we'll be in a watch, and sometimes we'll move to a warning. Whenever we move to like a winter weather warning or a wind chill warning, especially, that's when you start to see some of the larger schools in the area to the east of us really start canceling, and that's when we look at it. So like this last time when we went to a 2 hour late and literally, I'm going to use their school district name, Waconia, which we're 7 miles away. Why were we 2 hours late? And Sibley East, Glencoe, us, and Watertown were all 2 hours late. They were on time. Well, like I said, half of our students live in the country, like 80 to 85% of their students live in town. So just the transporting is just different. So I'm gonna for a second, but this is a well-known wind chill chart. This is what Ron uses when determining of whether to send the kids outside for. Yeah, I'm just gonna use my fingers. And so for those of you standing there or people looking at home, this light blue area here, basically what that area is 30 minutes until you can get frostbite. And then when you start to get in this darker blue area, that's 10 minutes. So one thing I'm looking at is, though I have a lot of confidence in our buses, I don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in the other people out on the road. And so one thing I'm looking at is can I can guarantee that barring a major, like once in a lifetime accident or event, I can get the buses there within 30 minutes of their regularly scheduled time. I'm not confident at 10 minutes. So if I have a kid out in the country and if you look here, like this is where we were that one morning, where we canceled. It was -37 to -39. It was just and then I get an hourly forecast too, and by the time 2 hours is up, it's still -37. Like, it's just that school's gonna be canceled, or we're gonna be moving to an e-learning type situation. This last one, we were right on, so it was negative, I think it was -17. We were kind of right on the border of this blue and dark blue when we did a 2 hour late start. But one thing I looked at was, at 10 o'clock when our kids would be, arriving at school, it went from -36, I think it was, down to, or up to -23, which -23 is squarely in the 30-minute range. And that's just, so I think what I would ask the board or other community members to just kind of keep in mind, my number one job is to keep the kids safe. Like, I don't ever want to, like, oh gosh, I wish I would have done that. You know, I wish I would have kept him home because an accident or something like that happens. And by the way, I want to keep us in session. Like, we have a certain number of days that we have to keep in session. I know it's inconvenient to parents. Typically when I know something, like, you get the messages, you get the calls, predicted weather, like, yep, we could be wrong sometimes, but I try to I'm a dad too, I try to let people know the night before when possible. And that could cut both ways, right? It can be, why don't you wait and see? Well, it's you're darned if you do and darned if you don't, but
Favorite things the superintendent.
one of the favorite things is, but I just, so now everyone kind of knows, like, or at least you all know, like, that's some of what goes into it. And really, when we get to the 10-minute frostbite range, it is, I'll just say it, I can guarantee that we are either late or canceled. And yeah, so I know Spencer specifically got some, hey, tell me about this. So I just thought it would be appropriate to talk about it tonight because it just happened. So any other question? I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board if you have them.
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
You know, I had this conversation at home, like, okay, there were activities that night then.
Yeah.
And so I was playing a little devil's advocate. It's like, why is it okay to send the kids out in a bus, but you explaining this helped me understand that
Yep.
now. They're in a bus, they're not gonna be on the side of the road waiting for a bus.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Good, because I'm glad you asked that. So, I typically have taken the standpoint, like, if we're not in session for school, we're not doing activities. I think there's been a pretty large departure from that line of thinking, just because, especially when you're talking about cold. I mean, when you're looking in the evening, it was down to in the 30-minute range or better, which I think you can handle that. One thing I did forget to mention is, and this isn't like a people are scared type of a situation, but you need to learn from the things that happen to you. So I don't know if you remember in like 2017, 2018, St. Paul Public Schools called school off really late, and there were kids sitting on buses until like 9 o'clock at night. It was all over the news. And I think there was this very strong push to e-learning days at that point, type weather-related e-learning days, to at least have that option. And we do have 5 of them that, it's not my favorite thing, but it is an option, right? And I'm confident that our principals and our teachers have our teachers prepared for that if it happens. If we weren't prepared, like, we wouldn't have been prepared when we had that canceled day in January. It was the first day of the semester. We were not prepared, so we just canceled school rather than trying to fake it, you know. So, other questions or comments? Thank you. Little goggle machine. There you go.
All right, D3, FY 2026 budget parameters.
Okay, thank you. So, one thing that so this is gonna come back to the board next month, to develop some budget parameters. And here's where I would like the board to be thinking if possible. Like, what do you want the fund balance to be? So, one thing, I'm gonna point out, behind us here is, as you can see, this is from page, can you scroll up a little bit, or down to the bottom? It doesn't have a page number. Okay, scroll up. This is something like page 34 in our audit that just happened in November. And as you can see, this is our percentage of fund balance. And this past year, our fund balance did drop fairly significantly by 6%. And I don't need to rehash that. We talked about why that was. And we're anticipating about a 12% unreserved fund balance again. And can you scroll to the next page? A slight, 0.2, but here's some of the back pages of the story. All of our board candidates talked about some of the enrollment things that have been happening in the last 5 years. We've had negative enrollment the last 5 years, and then this year we had our first uptick. We were one of maybe a dozen school districts that had an increase in enrollment this year, which is really good news. Currently our board policy is 7% for a fund balance. And I would like us to eventually have a dialogue, and we can have a dialogue, start the dialogue tonight. Where do we want that fund balance to be at the end of the year? Because you saying whatever that number is or whatever that percentage is really kind of sets the tone for how I go around building the budget for fiscal year 26. So you'll see tonight when we do the budget revision that our fund balance has gone up a couple $100,000, which is good, which is good news. And typically we would want to be, Rich, if you can go back to the other one. Typically, where I would feel most comfortable is having it in the high teens, low 20s%. I don't think we can make that jump in 1 year, but we can start clawing some of that back, because when you have a fund balance, that is our savings account, and just this last year, not picking on the school district that shall not be named. We had one special education student where we had the parents live in our district, they attended elsewhere, but it was a very expensive student. I mean, it was a very involved child that had nursing services and everything. I mean, that was a $200,000 bill. And having a fund balance in the 20% range allows us to roll with some of those punches a little bit easier than having it at 12% for sure. So just that would be my recommendation, but I also would like to have some discussion.
Is there any state statute that has a minimum
No, you
requirement?
cannot.
So you can't go to.
You can't go into you can't go, so once you get a negative fund balance, that is when
That's
you
what
are
it said.
in statutory operating debt. We are not anywhere near that. I don't want anyone to take that. But our fund balance policy is 7%. I just know, not our new board members, but our honestly, for the last 5 years, our board has been talking about, do we need to look at our fund balance policy? Do we need to raise it? This could be a year to raise it a percentage or 1.5%. This could be a year that we could consider it. And I'm going to speak both sides of my mouth here. And there are some unknowns at the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know. This could be a year to do it.
Can you speak a little bit to the downside of having too high of a fund balance? And that's taking away, if we were to say we just went really rogue and said we wanted 35% of the fund balance or 40%, right? There is a detriment to students you're saving that money on the backs of the students that are currently
I would agree with that
in
statement.
session. So there's a sweet spot in there, correct?
Agreed. I would agree with that statement 100%. I think the funds given this year are for the students this year, you know, and so it's like, but you also
Want to
can't
save for a rainy day.
you need, it's a balance of both. And I would say, one of our levy promises from 2019 was to up our fund balance $108,000 every year. And last year, a budget is a budget, and things can happen, like, yes, a tuition bill for $200,000, $90,000 of additional snow plowing services, you know, you know, there are things that happen. We have to plow our parking lots, but, you know, but on the plus side, we've had 2 non-snowy winters,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so.
I can't remember if the auditor gave a number that he
No,
or
so,
in the past, for some reason,
like
there's
I
a
recall,
number
like,
like
there's a
sticking
percentage
out.
of
so this is what this graph represents here. It says all schools excluding charter schools are the green. So the green is what all schools across the state of Minnesota have on average. So average is 21.9, we're at 12.5 for the latest comparative data. I think our auditor would say you probably should up your fund balance a little bit. Either through by saying our fund balance is this percentage or whatever, so.
And it's something that we could like say this year, let's go up a percentage. Next year, let's go up a percentage.
It may be, this is our 5-year target and we're gonna do this year, this year. And that way it's done. I would, if I was gonna make a recommendation, I would say do it incrementally.
Yeah, you don't wanna just jump way up and then it,
I think we can set, a minimum percentage and also a higher target that we would like to shoot for.
yeah.
And be opportunistic about that higher fund balance. Like, we don't need to make a giant jump there, but if we look out, say, 5 years, we want that to be 17%.
Yep.
And we increase our minimum balance by 1% a year over the next 5 years.
Yep.
We're still- Where's that?
So, the reason I showed enrollment, I mean, we have a really good enrollment this year, and I'm very proud of that hard work by our teachers, our principals, the marketing that we're doing. I think that those are all good things. And, we had a particularly low senior graduating class last year. I think Mr. Larson was still 72. Does that sound about right? 73 maybe? It was either 72 or 73. This year, we're gonna be graduating 85. And even worse is next year, not worse, but worse than this example, we're graduating 85. This year we have 67 kindergartners. I don't think we're gonna get 67 kindergartners. I just don't think the kids are there. So we're starting off the bat, minus 30. Plus, pardon me?
8th graders, that'll be 9th graders, I think, the 1.2.
Yep, so that's, yeah. So I think that's just some of the background. And I don't mean to call them out, but I mean, Mr. Larson specifically has done a lot of outreach at the high school level, where we are capturing more kids from, say, a Cologne Academy, that we've ever captured, ever. We may not get them in kindergarten, but the more of them are coming to us in 8th grade than they are going anywhere else. So, that's all good news. And I think that you get that with partnership, not by being adversarial, right? Or 9th graders, that's what they're saying, excuse me, 9th graders. But just doing the things like, hey, come to the basketball game, we'll give you a hot dog and we have a presentation about all the great things that we're doing. Like, it's just, I mean, literally Rich had people signing enrollment papers that night. So it's a good deal. But again, I want this on your radar. If there's data that you need to make a decision, that would be great. And again, it's a place to start budgeting, but
If the auditor has like-sized school districts and a recommended fund balance,
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
it's not in the audit report.
And then I would lean heavily onto some of your recommendations as to why those recommendations would be. Anything else you want them to gather? Well, if you think of anything, just, Tim asked me to gather that data for our next meeting.
Bring it to the next meeting. Thank you.
Any other conversations about budget parameters?
Outside of that, is there anything else we'll consider for? Outside of the finance.
So, I would say no, because whatever you want as a fund balance drives everything else. That sets the tone of where, where we divide the rest of the pot. So, that's not fun.
E, operational items. E1, discussion and consideration of candidates to fill board vacancy.
All right, Rich, can you pull up the, there you go, thank you. So, I lied, candidates, it wasn't at 6:20, it's at 6:40, we're getting to your
Sorry.
agenda item. At this time, I think this would be appropriate if there's any other positives that anyone wants to say about each of the candidates. And so I'm just gonna recap, because not everyone was here. We did interviews starting at 4:30 today. We interviewed 3 candidates. We videotaped it, I'll be posting it online. Elroy, Barbara, and Tony all interviewed. We asked the same questions of each candidate. After we were done, we created this list of the positives that each candidate brought. Jason Reed, who was our 4th potential candidate, he emailed me this afternoon and he dropped out. And so we did interview him, so we're not going to consider him. But on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for initially this year. So I think at this time, there should be additional discussion from the board on the positives from the candidates and what they offer. And when that discussion has exhausted, if somebody wants to bring forward a candidate, you would make a motion. For example, I nominate Tim Schockenmeyer to fill the board vacancy seat. If that receives a second, then there's a vote. If somebody gets 3 votes, we're done talking about it. But if somebody doesn't get a second or somebody doesn't get 3 votes, then you have to consider a different candidate, or there should be other discussions to do that. So I'm turning it over to you, Chair.
Well, I think, I just want to say again, in this meeting, I said it in the previous one, but I was blown away by the strengths of the applicants, and I'm so grateful for the great applicants we had. This will not be an easy decision. There's a ton of strengths from everybody, and you guys did an amazing job answering everything. So thank you. I'll open it to the board if there's other things that we want to add to any of the strengths or we want to discuss from the app related to the applicants.
As you're looking, I'm sorry, I should have said this at the beginning. I know we had a 5-point scale for each, kind of look for us for each one of the questions. One could say it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you were gonna rate them, but so somebody could say you have 25 total points possible, and depending on how you rank them, that could assist you with. That's the reason we did a rating scale to assist you when it got to this point, so it wasn't as subjective. And now I'm gonna be quiet.
Do you want to, I don't know, I'll take guidance from board members, especially from the interview committee. Do you guys have a preference on, you want to rank them, or do you want to just put out a nomination, or? Mine are so close. There's a 1.5 between the 3 of them. On mine, when I calculated my points.
Yeah. I think mine is 2 points, 3 points, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the conversation side of things, I think we're very probably anything to add
Right,
that we
yeah.
didn't hit most areas. Strength side of things, so I would say unless anybody else has additional strength they want to highlight or any other discussion points that we would nomination.
Okay. I'll pause for a little bit. I'll feel uncomfortable. Is everybody ready for that? Shout it out if there's anything. Okay, here we go. Well, hearing none, I'll entertain if somebody wants to put somebody forward. Is there a nomination?
I'll second that, that's why I chose to.
Okay. Discussion on that. All right, then let's go for a vote then. All those in favor of Tony signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Tony is nominated for a school board member. I cannot express how hard this was.
It was tough.
It was like,
It was very tough.
I did not, yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So then the next process will be, there is a 30-day cooling off period where, the community can explain this to me a little bit more, but they can.
Honestly, I don't know. This is the first time I've heard that. So there's,
Community
so
or
legally,
members can
yeah, so
report
legally,
concerns.
yeah, so, it's basically someone can challenge it. I don't know what that, I think that's more procedural than it is, I don't like your decision, but if that were to happen, I would contact MSBA and say, okay,
This is
I
the
have,
process,
this
what we
is
did.
the process, this is what we did, we followed their process, so, but I would, but there's a 30-day waiting period. And so at our next board meeting, it's the 24th today, our next board meeting is the 31st of March, we moved that back specifically, that way, the Tony now, could get sat and then take the oath of office on that, at that time. I will call Carver County and see if there's paperwork that needs to get done to like certify it, but they haven't told me this yet. Well, there's not an election, so there's not canvassing. So it just, but if I do get something from the community, I would obviously email you all and then contact NCPA about what the procedure would be. But I'm not anticipating that.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. Again, first time I did it, I just genuinely, like Tony, thank you. Barb, thank you. I know I was not here. I want to thank you. Hey, on different levels, I know all three of you, and I'm just so immensely grateful that we had three members sit up here in front of their community and friends and family and put themselves on the, I know that's not easy. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, K2 fiscal year 2025 budget revision.
Okay, Rich, can you pull that up?
I don't know why for some reason. I'm ready for someone to make me feel dumb, because I cannot scroll down and sort of.
Move your cursor. Oh.
Move your cursor, Rich. That's funny. Okay, so if you can go to the second page, I just want to highlight, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to highlight the budget cycle. So, again, we are in the January through March mid-year budget adjustments and projected budget for next fiscal year. That's part of the discussion that we just had. That's for next fiscal year. And tonight, we're going to talk about the budget revision for this fiscal year. Changes because, again, I'll get to that. What we thought was going to happen in June of last year isn't exactly what happened so far midway through. Next page, please. Everyone sees this, and I just want to, or everyone has seen this. It's in the finance report every single month. But the biggest healthy financially, the way to be the most healthy is to have a budget that's above your enrollment. And so each year we look at month to month what our enrollment trends are. So I've moved the yellow budget line to 30 ADMs, and then the blue line is our trend line for enrollment. I don't think it's atypical for districts to lose students over the course of the year, so that's not something to be alarmed at. And I would love it if we lost one, you know. So we'll see where that ends up. But our October, a very important number is the October 1 count. There's a lot of funding that's based on the October 1 student pupil count. So I want to talk about the next slide where it says fiscal year revised budget overview. So if you look at the middle column, that is what we had stated for our preliminary budget, and our fiscal year 25 revised budget is on the left. So if you go all the way down to the bottom, it shows that we have a $219,000 deficit. I don't want anyone to be alarmed about that because I'm going to talk about why that is. Some of that was planned because we had some restricted fund balances or restricted funds that had balances that we are paying down with the construction project. We'll talk about that in this last round. Okay. Next slide, please. So So this shows it by fund. So if you look at the revenues and expenditures by fund, so you'll see general funds, the first column, food services, the second column, community ed, construction, debt service, our trust and student activities. And I think the biggest look for here is specifically our Fund 7 construction fund. This is the actual bond, the bonds that we took out. We are pretty darn close to paying all of it. We're anticipating that we're gonna be paying all of those out. We are starting to get final bills from, well, through Nexus, but from contractors, and that's a good thing. I think a lot of this, once the construction project has washed through our entire system, it will just make our budget a whole heck of a lot easier, to be honest with you, because of, and why that is some of the delays that we experienced two summers ago actually like helped us, hurt us in one way and helped us in others. Like we earned additional interest on that money because we weren't spending it. But then it pushes it into another fiscal year because we hadn't spent it. So if you look at the next slide, revised budgeted by revenue fund. So this just kind of shows where most of our money goes to. I know it's hard to see at the bottom, but the large dark blue is general fund. Food service is the orange. Our community service fund is the gray area. The construction fund is orange, and then debt service, which is the loans that we're paying back, that is the light blue area. On the next slide, please. So here's where I want to go into detail around two things, and there's two specific slides. And actually, Rich, can you bump this up a little bit? Can you change the
Bump it up like
bigger? Yeah, can you make it a little bit bigger? Yeah, right like that. That's good. So I want you to start by looking at the first line. Excuse me, where it says 6/30/2004 estimated balance of our unassigned fund balance. So our unassigned fund balance at the end of last year was $986,904. After looking at our increases to enrollment and other factors, like I just said, we haven't, I think we've had one bill for snow removal. It's just one thing that I can point to. We are anticipating having an unrestricted fund balance, unassigned fund balance of same color, same row, but all the way to the right where it says estimated balance a year later of $1.2 million. So it looked, according to our revised budget, it looks like we're going up $200,000 in unreserved fund balance. So the question could be, if our fund balance is going up 200,000, why are you showing on the first page that we're going down 219? That story is below here. So if you could scroll to the restricted funds. So restricted funds, what that means is you have to use this money for this purpose. And some of the purposes are over on the side there. So non-spendable, I don't even know what non-spendable is, to be honest with you. Student activities, scholarships, staff development, capital projects levy, operating capital, basic skills, extended time, gifted and talented, long-term facilities maintenance, safe schools, medical and MA billing and MA and third-party billing. All of those are restricted. So when we get revenues from the state of Minnesota or through other, like for example, third-party billing, it has to go into that fund and be spent for purposes allowed under that fund. So if you look specifically halfway down at the capital projects levy. So if you recall, we bumped up our capital projects levy leading up to the construction project as additional free cash to spend on projects, so that way we didn't bond for more money. So if you look at that one specifically, our 2024 balance was $168,786, and our anticipated balance is $63,708. Well, there's $100,000 right there. If you go to the next one, operating capital, our initial balance was $116,000. Our projected balance is $30,000. So those are some areas where we are spending down. LTFM, which stands for long-term facilities maintenance. We had a balance of $492,000. We're ending with a balance of $189,000. So all of those balances are construction project related, which just tells a different story. Like, I realize the whole thing says it's negative 219,000, but our free cash has gone up by 200,000. And mainly that's due. So, sure.
So if we look at that chart with, general fund versus unrestricted expenditures, that'll probably stay level and take up a little bit.
That's exactly it, Spencer. It would tick up a little bit, because how we calculate that fund balance is by taking that 1.2 million up in the upper right-hand corner, and you divide that into, total expenditures, 14,055,000. So I've done that math already. If you were to do that math in our revised budget right now, the fund balance would go from 7% to 8.6%. So this is why I'm partially saying this is an opportunity to raise the fund balance, and it really, I almost have it baked in at this point in time.
There would be corresponding.
And that's due, you're exactly right, and that's due to our increase. So some of the budgetary cuts that we made last year and the increase of COVID is allowing us to maybe do that at one time.
Well, the volatility of the legislature right now is kind of nice to move that direction versus the other.
I agree, and I am not confident that we will have a passed budget by the legislature by June 30th. I think you had mentioned earlier that we may have to be conservative on that front. It is very possible, very, very possible.
5%, 10%, like holdback or retainage on the construction contracts.
So that is a lot of this. So we have retainage for Nexus. We hold the retainage, and we've talked about that just because of some of the things that we feel like they haven't delivered on, mainly the snafu can we call it that now? The snafu of 2023. Is it too far? Is it far enough away that
Yeah, I think we're getting there.
we're getting there? It's not too soon. We have not made a payment to, well, we've made one payment to Nexus since that time. So we still have a pretty good chunk of their money, and I will not pay that bill until every other bill is paid. It just will not happen, and I've been very clear with that to them. But Nexus holds the retainage for the construction company, or excuse me, the electrician company, or the plumbing contractor. And so when I say their final bills are coming in, on the punch list. There's one more double check, and then that final retainage will be paid out. Yes.
And that's in our.
That's
estimated budget.
That's in the estimated budget, in that 4 point, sorry, Rich, can you scroll back to a previous, up to one more? That's in that 4 point, oh, maybe not. Hold on, give me a second. Make sure I remember it. That is in the, they're in the, on the 4.7, $4,791,920. That is, so I have worked with them of what their anticipated work, what the bids were, what their anticipated bills are, and making sure it ties out. Yes. So Rich, can you go back to that previous slide that we were just on? Thank you. Other questions? This is kind of the most important slide. Okay, all right, next slide, please. So just a reminder to everyone, where do we get our funds? And why have we been talking about the legislature so much this evening? Well, darn near 78% of our money comes from state aid. That's the big green one. Our local levy, and I'm not talking about, which includes the voter approved levy, but we do a levy every year in December. That accounts, that's the orange, that's about 20%. And then some other local revenues, 300,000, and federal aid is only about 400,000. That's special ed aid, Title I, Title II, Title III. And where do we spend our money? And I think this is we are not abnormal from other school districts. Our biggest assets go home every night, and that's the kids and the teachers. So between orange, yellow, and green. So orange is salaries, yellow is benefits, and then green is purchase services. And purchase services for us are essentially Dasher, Taher, and
4.0.
4.0. Yep, so our busing, our food service and our custodial. If we had those in-house, they would be represented in the yellow. So it's honestly a little tit for tat in terms of, we just happen to purchase those services instead of having them in-house. Next slide, please. So this is, well, actually, before we can stop there, but I'm going to be moving into community ed next. Are there any general and Fund 1 questions before I move into the revised budget for community? Okay, so moving into the revised budget for community ed, our preliminary budget was having about $930,000 and in revenue, and we're projecting a little bit more than that, about a little over $1 million, which is an increase of about $90,000. That's a really good thing for us. One of the reasons why is again, I don't need to keep going back to construction, but our Phil in Kidsco we're having a lot more usage in Kidsco this year, and so some of that flows through here, and we right-sized our preschool staff this year. We only have 2.5 sections. I'd love it if it was 3.5, but like we hired enough teachers that fit into our ratios, because again, in pre-K, there's a ratio of 1 to 20 or 1 to 10. So 1 para, 1 teacher, 1 to 20 or 2 to 20 in the entire, you really can't go over that. So we're anticipating a $40,000 in the black for community ed, which is a good thing. So
How does VPK, if
Yep.
that gets rolled in next year, how does that affect? Does that go on our ADMs?
so
Or does that stay in just
so
preschool?
VPK is this is a great question. Thank you for asking it. So VPK stands for voluntary pre-K.
Mhm.
And basically what it does is there's a formula that students are treated like an ADM. So actually flows into Fund 1,
Okay.
but then would get paid out of Fund 1 to pay for pre-K teachers. So to not get too technical, you get reimbursement, or you get like ADMs for however many slots that you have, up to a 0.6. So right now we are passing all of that cost on to our parents through we have some scholarships, but I think we have 6 scholarships total. We are passing that cost increase onto our parents in the form of tuition. And so what that could look like, we have applied for VPK. I am cautiously optimistic that we are going to get some. We qualified for 21 slots. And essentially what that would mean is we would get the funding from the state, and let's just say in June or July, for people that have signed up for preschool, they're going to get a really cool phone call that says, oh, you were going to pay $500 a month. Well, now you're going to pay $200 a month, because 60% of the cost is going to be given to us in the form of state aid, which I would love to make those phone calls. I really would. And so.
Is that the great work that's been happening in the past few months?
Yeah, with applications.
Is that for an all-day option only?
You get, so technically, no, okay, so let's get in the weeds. No, let's get in the weeds a little bit. So because it's, so 0.6 is an important number. So what that could look like is, let's say we have an all-day, everyday program, and parents are paying for all 5 days through a tuition bill right now.
Mhm.
So you might, for example, designate your Monday, Wednesday, Friday as your VPK day. And then parents, that's what I'm saying, if they're paying $500, you take that, so now they're just paying for 2 days. That's how they get a 60% reduction in that bill. But then we would classify the 3 days as the VPK days, because you have to, along with funding comes just reporting. So I'm thinking that's how that would work. But I wanna see how many slots that is, and I know Sue has looked at allocating slots over in Cologne, allocating slots to some like, it's not just that easy, I'm just trying to like really simplify it.
I don't see most of it.
Yeah.
We find out if we push forward
Yeah,
in March.
Yep.
And there's a final decision after the legislative session.
so, like, what would be really bad? Cause I think, I do think we're gonna get some. I know, a really large district, maybe 14 miles to our east, gave back 288 slots this last year. They didn't have a need. Which is just crazy to me. I would love to, like, I think we've had signs on the back end that things are looking good. But what would be really bad is to fill that $5 billion hole, they cut VPK slots from the state budget. Like, that would have an impact on our, that would have a direct impact on our families.
Thank you.
Good questions. I do okay. Okay, any other questions around the overall revised budget? Things are looking good. I would, from my perspective, this is a lot different story than it was last year.
Any questions from board members? Well, hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 budget revision as presented.
Second.
Motion by Aishin, second by Probox. Any other conversations? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Budget revision is approved. Our next board meeting is going to be on March 31st here in the fishbowl at 6 o'clock. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn if there's anything else from board members.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion by Erickson, seconded by Kelly. Any other conversations? Here's your chance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.